Most people have heard of the trolley problem before. It asks, if a trolley is headed for 5 people, would you divert the trolley so that it hits 3 people instead? It's an interesting question, but rooted only in philosophy. In order for the question to be interpreted as originally intended, the person at the lever needs to value each life at exactly the cost of one life. But in truth, the chances of this are close to 0. No one values all lives equally. There's a concept called implicit bias, and it affects all of the decisions we make in our life. The definition of implicit bias, or unconscious bias, is, for nerds, societal stereotypes formed by individuals unconsciously about groups of people separate from their own conscious awareness. Now, if that's way too many words for you, it's probably something closer to things that you think about people you don't realize you think. It's a result of our brain's tendency to simplify the world around us, which is cool. But the problem is this bias is affected by external factors, stuff like the movies you watch, the books you read, the limited amount of history that it is possible to teach. It's insanely easy to change how we see the people living in our society with us. But the sad thing is, it's also way easier for me to stand here and tell you guys to stop thinking about other people than it is to actually stop thinking about other people. So in order to combat the fact that all of you think you are so perfect and amazing and different from all the other human beings in history, I have modified the trolley problem. So one of the main critiques of the trolley problem is that the situation is too extreme or disconnected from real-life moral situations to be real or educational or useful at all. So I've decided to replace the trolley with an electric chair. So the electric chair will electrocute the person sitting in it, obviously that's how they work, but it will only leave them bedridden instead of killing them violently like a trolley would. So let's start with the first scenario. There are 2 people, they both have t-shirts on, and one of the t-shirts says, "The smell of pineapple pizza woke me up from my coma." The other person also has a t-shirt on, thankfully, and this t-shirt says, "Pineapples on pizza is the biggest disgrace to Italy since the fall of the Roman Empire." Who are you choosing to shock? You must go with your first instinct. So most of you will have either refused to choose or spent the time wondering if, I've seen a doctor recently, but even then, you still had this initial flash of thought or opinion where you condemned someone to electrocution. And most likely that thought was one of 3. It was either 1, why do they like pineapples on pizza? 2, why don't they like pineapples on pizza? Or 3, why do they care so much? And whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, all of you, including me, are more likely to electrocute the person who disagrees with us. Humans believe that if someone has even just one matching belief or opinion to our own, they must have a similar general worldview. We try to find this fundamental sameness in all of the people around us, which is fine. But then this pull is accompanied with a matching push. We don't like the people who have even just one disagreeing belief. And this is especially true when you only have a little bit of information about them. For example, if you only know if they like pineapple pizza or not. It's to the point where in short-term relationships or first-time meetings, it's more important to think that you're similar to someone than it is to actually be similar to them. The American Psychological Association actually ran a study to try to figure this out. So they made up a bunch of fake people, and then they randomly assigned them with either the trait of overestimator or underestimator. And then they brought in real participants, and all of these real participants said that overestimators were more likely to be friends with other overestimators, and underestimators are more likely to be friends with other underestimators. Is this true? Probably not, but that's what they thought, which is what is the most important. Scholars from Lingnan University came to a similar conclusion, hypothesizing that perceived general similarity, even if you're not actually similar to them, can reliably predict relationship satisfaction, and confidence in this similarity only increases this correlation. We're naturally extremely moral creatures, and interacting with someone who disagrees with you about a topic, a complex topic, can be unfulfilling at best and self-disrespecting at worst. But the issue comes when you have to draw the line. You can decide to be friends with someone who disagrees with you about pineapple pizza. Pineapple on pizza is great. But what happens when it comes to religion? When it comes to political parties? What happens when it comes to social justice topics like gun laws or physician-assisted suicide? It's impossible to turn these categories into boxes. Now, moving on to the next scenario. Now, there is a guy and he's got bright blue hair and so many piercings on his face and on his ears that a good refrigerator magnet would put him out of commission. There is also a young blonde woman, and you can't really tell if she's mad about the electric chair or not because she's got so much lip filler done that she can't smile or frown. So, who are you going to electrocute? So similar to the last one, I'm sure that all of you had some kind of opinion or thought about these two poor souls. But let's talk first about the blue hair. Blue hair has become markers of movements, of supporting movements like environmentalism, feminism, anarchism, even communism. It's gone to the point where supporters of conservatism and Republican politicians will use terms like blue-haired to refer to the younger generation of liberals. And even in a general context, unnaturally dyed hair and alternative fashion has become a marker of being out of the mainstream. A similar thing happens with piercings. People with piercings, particularly facial piercings, are seen as less agreeable, less moral, less competent, but more extroverted. Now, the woman. So the obvious bias that everyone already knows is the dumb blonde bias, but first we're going to talk about her lip filler. So women who seek plastic surgery are perceived less favorably, according to scholars from the University of Melbourne, in factors like humanity, warmth, kindness, and competence, which is kind of crazy. But the more interesting thing is that these negative effects do not change the perception of people who are considered unattractive. So basically, if you are already attractive, then seeking plastic surgery will make people think badly of you. But if you are unattractive or considered to be unattractive, then scholars suggest that this empathy felt towards ugly people is actually mitigating the negative effect of plastic surgery. So basically, it's like if you're already beautiful, guys, you're beautiful, you don't need to be more beautiful. But then if you're ugly, it's like, why aren't you beautiful? So it's bad news for people like me. But the most interesting thing about all of these biases is how they intersect with gender. So, dumb blonde jokes. Dumb blonde technically refers to a hair color, right? It's a phenotype. But how many of you have heard of a dumb blonde joke made to a man? Most dumb blonde jokes directly refer to women. And the same goes for blue hair. If I asked all of you to conjure up this beautiful image of a blue-haired liberal standing right in front of you, all of you would think of a white woman with blue hair. And same with piercings, actually, because men with piercings are perceived as less intelligent, less attractive than women with piercings at a much higher ratio. So now it's like, okay, why are we doing all that? And finally, the last scenario. There is a person in a very nice navy blue suit. You know, they neglect their children. They just closed $1 million business deal on a Friday night while you're listening to a bunch of high schoolers talk. But there's also a person in a Starbucks barista apron, and you think you just picked up your triple espresso macchiato from them just this morning. So now all of you guys know what I'm going to ask you to do. Please choose who you're going to turn on the electric chair for. So this one's trickier than the last few, but we're going to give it a shot. So first, the suit. People perceive others in suits as being more trustworthy, more professional, which is, awesome, but it's limited to workspaces. Workspaces are places where you need to be perceived as trustworthy or professional, or where dress codes are already put in place. Outside of these places, like when you're tied to a Starbucks barista in an electric chair, actually, suits become signals for something else. They become signals for money, authority, and institutions. Because when someone looks like their status is above you, it's so much easier to assume they have bad intentions. Suits and money can read as scripted and polished, and they become shorthand for systems. And then the Starbucks barista. So there's the basic stuff, like how you see them treated on a daily basis, badly, right? And internalized myths like the idea that service jobs are temporary, then again lead people to treat them badly. Concepts like occupational prestige, where they tie worth and intelligence to job titles, really suck. But actually, commoners like you and me will connect more with the barista than we will with the person in the suit. Because like we said with the first scenario, common qualities encourage connection. Not to mention, you had a face-to-face interaction with them earlier. Or you're pretty sure you did, because familiar faces, even if they're not actually familiar to you, just encourage more connection. So now it's like, Hillary, you've been talking about torturing people for the past 10 minutes. Like, I'm never going to have this much power over anyone. I'm never going to have to decide if I'm going to turn on someone's electric chair or not. What are you talking about? And then I'd be like, well, no, you're wrong, because you actually, well, hopefully you're right about the electric chair, but no, you're wrong, because you will actually always have some kind of power over someone. Whether you become a job supervisor and you get to decide who advances in interviews, or you walk into a room full of unfamiliar people and you're choosing who to talk to first, you will always, every step you take brings you closer to interacting with someone who you will have biases about. And the funny thing about the trolley problem is that it was never about the trolley. The trolley problem has always been about the lever, and you were holding levers every single day. We like the trolley problem so much because it's so extreme and hypothetical, and the last time you saw a trolley was when you drove up 400 miles to San Francisco. But when you look in real life and you look around at the people who are next to you, you don't see numbers. You don't see the 5 versus 3 people on the tracks. You have to make eye contact with people who have qualities that you are not aware about. The most commonly used tool for measuring implicit bias, the implicit association test with over 40 million takers, actually found a 78.3% bias towards thin people across the board, and a 59.9% bias towards white people across the board. That's 40 million people that these statistics are taken from. An HR consulting firm, Diversity Australia, found that within 78% of their clients, similarity bias was the overriding factor in their recruitment decisions. You can post about inequality on your Instagram story. You can tell your neighbors, wow, I really care about this one really niche social justice topic. But the truth is that you will always pull the lever. You will always pull it one way or another because you have 2 options and you must pick one. And neuroscience and biology, all of these things are telling you to do this thing that you don't even know you're doing. So then it's like, what now? And you cannot stop the trolley, but you can get it to slow down. When you don't like someone instantly, ask yourself why. When you like someone instantly, you're like, this person is great. Ask yourself why. And if you assume competence, you assume incompetence, why are you doing that? Because all of the choices you go on, you step out of this room and you're making a bunch of decisions, none of those will include people in electric chairs and a giant red button. But all of those decisions will be so much more important because life isn't changed by these Marvel movie type Iron Man, Superman decisions, but they are changed by ordinary people making ordinary choices in their ordinary lives. Thank you.